Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I want to welcome you to another installation of Zoom In on the Halal Metropolis, where our research team is checking in with Muslim leaders, community leaders, and activists to find out how the community is faring in the face of the pandemic, and also to find out what sort of work people are doing. And today we're very excited to welcome Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Hi, Rashida. How are you doing?
Good. Salams, everyone. Thanks for having me, Sally.
I'm so happy to have you on the show. So first, how are you and your family doing?
We're good. I mean, I think it's been a huge challenge, I think, for anybody during this pandemic. But I feel blessed that at least I get to be with my kids, and I know a lot of my neighbors are not able to get that opportunity. Most of them are frontline workers, and I know even with folks that are listening, you're probably business owners or know someone that just it's impossible for them to be able to provide for their families by staying home. But yeah, luckily I've been able to do a little bit more of that. But I've been in Washington D.C. for the last 2 weeks, so I hate not physically seeing my babies for 10 days now. But alhamdulillah, I'm blessed. I'm alive. I'm well. Other than the allergies, I'm doing well in that sense. But
well, I'm glad to hear it's allergies. I know that you got your vaccine. When you got the vaccine, I felt so lifted up. I felt so happy. It's like such a sign of hope. So yes, we want to encourage everyone to get the vaccine. I know that as of next week, I will be able to get it. So I can't wait to get it as soon as I can.
I just want to encourage people to really seek it out. I know in our community, people are hesitating still. Stop with the conspiracy. My Yaba, my father, Allah Rahma, God rest his soul. Oh my God, he would conspiracy, make everything. There is no conspiracy. I promise you. The health experts, the scientists have testified before my committee that this is a pathway to making sure that you all remain safe and healthy, and that to combat COVID right now.
And your mom's gotten it too, right?
Yes, she did. It's so funny. My mom's like, how do people know? I said, Mom, people follow you now, Yama. Like, so she was able to get it through Rite Aid. So when Rite Aid expanded, just calling the number, and she was able to get an appointment right away.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, we're all feeling relieved. The quicker the rollout goes, the happier we'll be. Well, so I wanted to ask you about the domestic terrorism law that's being proposed in Congress. What is your position on that?
Yeah, so for folks to understand, there's this push now, of course, reactionary. We saw it after 9/11. We've seen it with a number of other, horrific incidents and tragedies within our country. And so there's been proposals by some of my colleagues, well-intended, to create yet another layer of laws around how do we combat domestic terrorism. Now, it's really important to understand white supremacist groups have existed in our country for decades, probably from its first inception. And from what's happened to our indigenous brothers and sisters to now continuation, as you see, much of that through various policies and structures are still there that are set up against a lot of our Black neighbors. And then even the anti-immigrant movement you see continue on, attacks many of our community members, especially our Latino and Arab community. And so I have been pushing back and saying, no, you already have the authority. You had it through the Patriot Act. You have it through a number of authorities. And I want listeners to understand this. There are current laws, over 50 of them, that made what happened on January 6th criminal. They could be prosecuted today. I mean, what happened to even our own governor here in Michigan of a kidnapping? Our Michigan Attorney General has a number of laws that she was able to use to prosecute them. And so it's important because what we've seen in the past with these initiatives from those in the 70s, I can't remember what they used to call it, but guess who they ended up targeting?
Dr. You mean COINTELPRO? You mean COINTELPRO? Right?
Well, that and I mean, they targeted Black activists like Dr. Martin Luther King. They used it to go after Black protesters. They continue to use it going after Muslims and going after people of color. And so we don't need new laws. You already have the authority. Your problem is the culture and the intention within law enforcement agencies to use it.
It's not the laws, it's the will.
Yes,
it's the will.
You already have the authority. They
Yeah.
just have to use it. And so, and I want, and I'll share with you, Sally, and please share it with your listeners and folks that are tuned in. There was an FBI report or study that came out during Obama's administration. It kind of got tucked in the last administration, hidden. But we had a powerful, powerful hearing in House Oversight Committee with Jamie Raskin, our chair. And, Congressman Raskin, wanted this to come to light because the study showed that white supremacist groups were infiltrated into our law enforcement agencies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so enough with, we don't need new laws. We already have the authority. Because I'll tell you, if it was me that did what they did on January 6th, I would be prosecuted by now, right? I would.
You would have been called a terrorist just right off from the,
Yeah.
The terrorist word is, I don't like the use of the word in law enforcement because I don't think it helps solve any problem. Like the incident that happened in Nashville, people are like, is this terrorism or not? I'm like, what on earth? How on earth can you be asking if this is terrorism or not? But he wasn't a Muslim, and so they were like, well, it's not terrorism. I really don't understand that. But I'm glad to see
that. What I told my colleagues is, whoa. First of all, what happened to us on January 6th, that's what our community's been dealing with. You saw what happened to the synagogue in Pittsburgh, what happened to Charlottesville at a predominantly Black church, right? I mean, this has been happening. White supremacy and white supremacist terrorists have been infiltrating these communities and targeting our communities way before what happened on January 6th. They have the authority. They have the laws and the books right now to go after these groups. My God, they are publicly on social media telling you what they want to do. So it's time to use the same authority that you did. You seem to be easily using it towards Black Lives Matter protesters, towards our Muslim neighbors across the country. So I think it's really important for people to understand January 6th happened to the Capitol, but what happened on January 6th has been happening in communities all across the country. I've seen it happen to masjids all over the country. You see it happening even in workplaces where predominantly, Black workers are getting targeted in the workplace.
Yep. Again, a lot of post offices and places like that. Absolutely, this is an old story. I agree. I mean, it's even happened at the Ford Rouge plant. It's a very common thing. Yeah, and we still see. I mean, this doesn't necessarily get reported in the media very much, but there's still some of these white nationalist groups from Michigan who like to come to Dearborn and have their open carry weapons in front of a mosque, get their picture taken, and it's only because the local law enforcement community is aware of what's happening, and and also the leadership of the Muslim community kind of knows how to handle this now. So we haven't had a crisis here in Michigan, fortunately, in one of our masajid in this way, but it's very frightening. So yeah, I agree. It's the government going to pay attention to this crisis and try and resolve it. Well, so I know that that your main issue as a politician, as a member of Congress, is to really try and solve some of the problems that the members of your district face. And your district, of course, is one of the poorest in the country. It is downwind of a lot of major industrial pollution. The COVID pandemic has just been devastating to, as you were saying earlier, to frontline workers, their families. A lot of people are unemployed. So can you tell us what's happening with the COVID relief bill? Can you tell us what's happening with the reopening of schools, all of these issues that are really, I know, on the front of minds of your constituents?
Yeah, and I think so. Folks to know, our unemployment benefits are going to be expiring. The extra money to help those that are unemployed among us on March 14th, and so we're trying to pass a bill before then. And it's important to realize too, in that same bill is, of course, direct payment of $1,400. It's going to really help a lot of families. Of course, I've been pushing that it should be $2,000 reoccurring payments. And I wouldn't mind it being triggered by the unemployment rate or what's going on. So that we're not constantly, again, this is only third payment where, I think Canada's done a lot more than what we've done right at the get-go in the beginning. And then there's also rental assistance. I know a lot of listeners are probably maybe renters and need help, or small businesses. There's an extension of help for real small businesses to getting PPP loans, which actually can turn into grants in support of you paying your folks, but also putting in new equipment, new protections in place for not only your customers but your workers. And then of course our schools, I'm really pleased to see a huge funding effort for our schools to be able to prepare for opening and to make sure that the kids are safe. The expansion of vaccinations, I think are going to be really important, but to go mobile. I think starting to go, we're seeing already the city of Detroit going to churches. I would love to start seeing masajids being, used as a hub to get folks, because, folks trust their faith leaders. They trust those institutions. They know where it's at, to actually finally come up. And I know that would also allow, translation and fully understanding, what the impact of vaccination is. And so all of that is in there, and I'm eager to see this move forward. I'm hoping it will get done before March 14th.
Congress passed it, right? You're just waiting for the Senate to pass it.
So the Senate's messing around again, just for you all to know. I don't know when you listen to this or what's changed, but I know right now they pretty much took the $15 minimum wage out already. Yeah. And now there's also discussions of reducing unemployment from $400 to $300. I think they've been able to successfully do that. And again, this just demonstrates not all Democrats are the same. So please remember that. Just
vote your primaries, people.
Yeah, nonpartisan, but just like all Republicans are not the same. Neither is Democrats. So I think it's important to know this is still moving and still changing. However, help for our schools, help for our local government, our businesses seem to be an area that they're not touching. But unfortunately, what they are impacting is the direct aid to people, which is unbelievably, it should not be controversial. It should not be controversial to provide more direct aid to people.
Especially the poorest people, the people who are in most need. Not everybody needs a handout right now, but a lot of people really do. And as we know, when low income people get assistance like this, it goes right back into the economy. Whereas if you give it to middle class families, they just put it in the bank. Yeah. So the one last thing I wanted to ask about is, I understand that there's supposed to be a report out tomorrow about the travel ban and what can be done to not only rescind the travel ban, but to maybe try and alleviate some of the harm that it caused. Do you know anything about that report?
No, but I know there's been a huge effort. The coalition that got Repeal the Ban passed with bipartisan support in the last term. We are hoping, crossing fingers, to actually make it law next month in April. We're hoping during the month of Ramadan, inshallah, get repeal the ban will become law. And I think it's important to understand for folks, yes, the President Biden issued an executive order to repeal it, but we want to make sure it can never happen again, no matter who the future president is. And so we want to make it sure that it's in law, and again, we prevent it from ever happening again. We know already our direct impact. I have a huge Yemeni community in my Southwest Detroit neighborhoods who have been contacted. We've had a number of press conferences, families, children being completely separated from their mother. Loved ones have been ill, they couldn't travel to come and see each other. And so it has been very difficult. Even couples that got married in like within days, they could not be able to be reunited. So I know the human impact was pretty devastating and traumatic. And I hope the report does also talk about the trauma, not just, the number of people, but to also paint the picture of what this meant, because I know for a fact there are loved ones in my community that couldn't say goodbye to their mother, their father, others. And it's been a global pandemic. And so they, from afar, even with everything, the war, the devastation and hunger in Yemen have also created so much anxiety among my colleagues. And again, I know it impacted other countries, but for many of my residents, and especially in Southwest Detroit, it's been predominantly my Yemeni community that have been directly harmed.
Yeah, I can't imagine that there's a district that's been more affected than yours, actually. I mean, I guess the district I live in may be sort of on an equal footing with yours, but it has been devastating here. And it's also, when the federal government just blatantly discriminates against a whole mass of people because of their faith, that tells everybody from that faith community that they're not equal too. It's just outright racism.
That trauma. So even me as a Muslim in the United States, it may not have impacted my family directly, but my kids heard that. My, it's just this sense of rejection from your own country. And so absolutely, I agree with Sally. And that's why I hope if there is a report coming out that they also talk about the trauma and then talk about, how much has hate crimes towards Muslims increased after the ban? Because it did send a clear message to the nation and to white supremacist groups that the president is willing to completely exclude people solely based on their faith, predominantly Muslims, obviously targeting Muslims. And so I hope, again, that report is pretty comprehensive and not just data driven.
Believe me, I hope so too. I'm really eager to see that report, and I'll put a link to it here in the blurb for this conversation when I put it on the web. Well, so I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I know how incredibly busy you are, and I wish you luck with all that you're doing. And I hope that very soon we can see each other again at some Ramadan iftar in Dearborn or some community event in the summer where we can actually shake hands, give each other a hug again. I can't wait for that America to open up again. But anyway, stay safe. I know it's not been easy for you in Washington, so stay safe. Take care of yourself, and thank you for everything you do.
Assalamu alaikum. Take care, everyone. Ma salam.